I knew things were changing the moment Bryce dropped the word synergy unironically during his first all-hands. That smug, two-button suit wearing, MBA without the M came strutting in like he just invented capitalism, not inherited a corner office from the man who used to call me the spine of this place. I've seen startup bros come and go, but this one had the confidence of a man who's never had to earn his parking spot. 17 years. That's how long I'd been with Halcyon Systems. I joined back when our servers were held together with duct tape and hope, and our marketing team was just whoever could make a halfway decent PowerPoint. I was there before we got the funding rounds, before we outgrew 2 office buildings, and long before anyone had ever heard of Bryce with a Y. The founder, Mr. Halcyon himself, Arthur, built this company from a folding table in a rented storage unit. He used to say, "Jen, processes make permanence." And I made sure every process had a paper trail, a timestamp, and a backup. When you've been somewhere long enough, you stop needing a title to know your worth. Technically, I was Chief Operations Liaison, whatever the hell that meant to outsiders. Internally, I was the person you called when procurement stalled, compliance panicked, or legal forgot which version of the charter we were using. I kept the whole machine running without ever needing to raise my voice. Then Arthur got sick. He started fading about a year ago. Quietly at first, missed meetings, forgotten names, odd silences. He still had moments of clarity, but the board got nervous. And nervous boards do stupid things, like handing the reins over to Bryce, Arthur's wet-nosed nephew, who once asked if we could just chat GPT our compliance reports. I wish I were kidding. From the second Bryce set foot in the office with his polished loafers and fake humility, I knew I had a countdown running over my head. He made a speech about modernizing legacy systems, while never once looking me in the eye. His eyes, for the record, were usually glued to his phone, scrolling through whatever crypto clown was promising to 10x his ego. I started noticing things. My calendar permissions got weirdly restricted. People I'd mentored were suddenly CCing me instead of inviting me. And I overheard him in the hallway telling HR I had museum energy. Here's the thing about being underestimated: it gives you time. Quiet time. The kind where you revisit old files, pull up those dusty PDFs nobody's opened since 2008, and remember every handshake that ever meant something. Arthur and I had an understanding. He trusted me to safeguard the company's foundation. And buried in those foundations, some very old, very real clauses with very sharp teeth. But hey, before I go full scorched earth, real quick, if you're listening to this and haven't subscribed or hit the like button yet, now's your cue. 90% of folks just binge these stories like popcorn without showing love. But every like and sub keeps this little engine running, and it means the world to the team busting their butts behind the scenes. Now, back to Bryce's slow-motion car crash. I didn't fight the shift. I let him replace our vendor liaison with his frat brother from Sigma Chi. I watched him convert our internal wiki into a Slack channel called Bryce Notes. I even smiled when he rolled out Fun Shirt Fridays like it was a new federal holiday. But what I also did was quietly renew my notary license, dust off a certain 19-page document signed by Arthur in 2009, and begin logging every interaction with HR into a private email thread titled "If This Idiot Fires Me." I knew the final blow would come suddenly. Bryce didn't have the spine for confrontation. He was more the schedule a meeting at 7:30 a.m. and bring coffee like a psychopath type. So I waited. And while I waited, I made damn sure every piece of paper he'd never read was in order. Every clause he would have mocked had been verified. Every signature was notarized. I wasn't planning revenge. I was preserving structure. The structure he was too arrogant to understand. Because here's what Bryce never learned in business school, or at least not in between keg stands and TED talk shorts. The person who understands the foundation holds the power to shake the entire house. And I was about to shake it. It happened at 7:59 a.m. on a Tuesday, because of course it did. Only a coward picks a time before most people have even poured their first cup of coffee. I was still locking my car in the garage when I saw the meeting invite pop up. Subject line, quick sync. Location, HR conference room B. Sent at 7:56. No context, no prep, just vibes. Bryce was already there when I walked in, legs crossed, sipping some green sludge from a mason jar like he'd just emerged from a yoga retreat in a tech cult. HR Director Melissa sat beside him like a hostage, pretending her makeup could conceal the dread in her eyes. I gave her a nod. She didn't return it. He didn't waste time. Jennifer, he said, like the name tasted sour in his mouth. We've been evaluating our organizational strategy, and after a lot of difficult discussions, he actually smiled here, the bastard. We've decided to sunset your role as part of our modernization initiative. Sunset, he said, like I was a failed email campaign. I blinked once. That was it. No tears, no gasps. I just tilted my head the way you do when a child proudly presents you a drawing of a dragon that's clearly just a squiggle with eyes. I didn't need to hear the rest, but he gave it anyway. We really appreciate your historical contributions, he added, dragging out the word historical like I was a fossil he'd found in a filing cabinet. It's important to stay relevant in today's landscape. That last line, that was the gift. The phrase that told me everything I needed to know. He wasn't just cutting dead weight. He thought this was a teaching moment. Consider this your final lesson, he said, like he was the sensei in a startup-themed karate movie. I smiled, tight-lipped. No teeth, no words, just nodded once and stood, picked up my purse. Didn't even bother taking the travel mug I'd just set down. The walkout felt like the longest, slowest parade I'd ever marched in. Except no one clapped. They just averted their eyes like I had become contagious. The elevator ride down was blessedly empty. My hands were steady. My heart wasn't. I got into my car, shut the door, and screamed. Not loud, not primal. Just one short, guttural burst like letting steam out of a cracked pipe. Then I opened my banking app, deposited my final paycheck. Bryce had it ready. Smug little overachiever, and clicked confirm. That timestamp mattered. Next stop, Notary Public. I had the letter already printed, sealed, and labeled for board legal counsel immediate review. All it needed was the seal. The notary raised an eyebrow when she read the first line but didn't ask questions. Just signed, stamped, and slid it back. Then came the courier. I'd prepaid the same-day service 2 weeks ago, labeled time-sensitive legal document. The driver asked if it needed a signature on delivery. I told him yes, but only from the company's general counsel. Not HR, not Bryce, no substitutes. He left and I sat back in my car, parked outside the coffee shop across the street from the office. I didn't go home. I watched. Through the tinted windows, I saw Bryce leave the building an hour later, laughing with someone from strategy, probably the same frat brother he hired to run analytics, despite thinking a Gantt chart was a type of cheese. What Bryce didn't know was that the letter now in transit contained more than just flowery goodbyes or legal grumbling. It was a formal notice of termination acknowledgement, executed by the party of the second part, me, per Section 4.8 of the 2009 Operational Reversion Agreement. A clause so old, even most of legal forgot it existed, but I hadn't. I helped Arthur draft that agreement when we incorporated. He was paranoid back then, terrified the board might someday be swayed by blood ties instead of competence. So we wrote safeguards, legal tripwires, checks buried so deep they might as well have been written in invisible ink. But I kept copies, in triplicate, stored in 2 places, encrypted in one. That clause stated that if I were ever terminated without full board approval and severance, in compliance with original charter terms, operational control of Halcyon systems would revert, within 72 hours, to the Founders Trust and to the appointee listed therein. Bryce had just pulled the pin on his own grenade. And the best part? He still thought I was just historical. Bryce posted a gif of a broom sweeping in the exec Slack channel with the caption, "Spring cleaning, baby, out with the old." Someone reacted with a fire emoji. Another added the little clapping hands. I know this because someone forwarded me the thread. They shouldn't have, but they did. Loyalty's a funny thing. It doesn't always fade just because you're no longer on payroll. From his corner office, which, for the record, used to be a supply closet until Bryce had it remodeled with mid-century synergy vibes, he strutted around like a man who'd just slayed a dragon, not pushed out the one person keeping his feet out of legal quicksand. He ordered a catered lunch for the exec team that day. Poke bowls and kombucha. Celebrated my graceful exit with a toast about removing legacy friction. I'm told he even pitched a new org chart titled The Future Forward, printed in Helvetica, like that was supposed to mean something. I wasn't surprised. Bryce had all the emotional depth of a damp paper towel. What I was counting on was his arrogance. The same arrogance that made him shrug off the legal memo his assistant slid under his smoothie that afternoon. I imagine it went something like this. Hey, legal flagged something in the old governance archives about Jennifer's termination. They said it might warrant review. Bryce probably waved it off between bites of his kale avocado whatever. We sunsetted that clause years ago. Let compliance run in circles if they want. But we hadn't, because I hadn't let them. Every 3 years like clockwork during compliance audits, I ensured the reversion clause stayed active, recertified, renotarized, and I had the PDF trail to prove it. Most of the current team wasn't around in 2009. They didn't know the founders' paranoia ran deep. They didn't know that I was the one who helped design that clause, back when we both believed Halcyon needed permanent safeguards from, well, exactly what Bryce had become. It wasn't revenge. Not really. It was just continuity. Meanwhile, the courier was halfway across the city, tracking GPS pings as he weaved through traffic. The envelope in his satchel bore my seal, the same one Arthur and I used back when we filed our first Delaware incorporation paperwork. Inside, the notarized execution notice, cross-referenced with board charter documents, and a copy of Arthur's trust appointment directive. Dated, signed, filed with the state, unaltered. The language was precise. In the event that Jennifer L. Crane is involuntarily terminated without documented cause, and if said termination fails to meet the severance and board notification standards outlined in Article 7.2, then operational oversight shall revert to the Founders Trust. Control shall transfer to the Trust's appointed successor within 72 business hours of executed notice. barring direct board intervention with unanimous override, which shall require the founder's written assent. They had no override, and Arthur hadn't signed anything in over 9 months. Bryce didn't know the clock was ticking. He didn't know the courier was 3 blocks away when he posted a TikTok of himself on the office balcony with the caption, "Making room for innovation." Let's go. Didn't know that legal was already calling in an intern to dig through the archived governance binders, the physical ones no one ever looked at unless I asked them to. Back at home, I didn't celebrate. I didn't pour wine. I pulled out a yellow legal pad and wrote out a timeline, old school. 7:59 a.m. termination. 8:41 a.m. notary seal affixed. 9:02 a.m. courier dispatched. By 12:03 p.m., it was marked as delivered and signed for by Halcyon Systems General Counsel, Lisa Hallbrook. I had a paper trail, timestamps, emails, tracking confirmations, even a recorded voicemail to my personal counsel noting the event, all within the window. That evening, I received a single-line email from Lisa. Please confirm whether you've executed the reversion clause as outlined in Article 4.8. I replied, executed, timestamped, and delivered as required, effective as of today. I signed it warm regards because I'm a professional. Then I sat back, opened a pack of saltines, and watched the Slack notifications pile up on my burner phone. The whispers had begun. Not panic yet, but it would come. They just didn't know it was already too late. The thing about watching a building collapse from the outside is it's quieter than you'd expect. No dramatic fireball, no sirens, just little cracks spreading through the concrete while everyone inside keeps sipping their kombucha and pretending nothing's wrong. By Thursday, 2 days post-termination, Bryce had already fired 3 other senior staffers. All of them had been with Halcyon since the early growth years. Our VP of Vendor Relations? Gone. Payroll Systems Manager? Out. The woman who built our onboarding framework from scratch while pregnant with twins? Reassigned. That one hit me harder than I expected. Her name was Patris. She brought me soup during a flu season in 17. Now she was escorted out without a goodbye email. In their place, frat bros. Literal frat bros. His old college roommate Zach, who once got kicked off campus for hosting a whiteboard margarita night, was now our new chief strategy architect. No background in tech. No background in anything unless you count motivational crypto threads on Twitter. Another buddy named Kyle was installed as head of organizational vibes. I swear to you that was his title. Organizational vibes. Inside sources, meaning a few brave souls who still had me on their personal WhatsApp, sent me screenshots of Bryce's morning pep talks. Legacy doesn't equal loyalty, he wrote on Wednesday. We're building a future, not worshipping a past. Keep your energy clean, your ideas disruptive. Someone else captioned one of his videos with, "This is what happens when a LinkedIn post grows legs and walks into your office." I nearly choked on my coffee. From my little home office, nothing fancy, just a window seat and a beat-up desk. I sipped my dark roast and watched the Slack leaks roll in like postcards from a ship headed straight for the iceberg. Someone sent me a spreadsheet, projected cash flow for Q4. It had my formulas, my color coding, my notes in the margins still intact. Bryce had replaced the top row with a header labeled, "Optimized by Bryce." That man couldn't format a cell if you paid him in NFTs. Then came the HR fumble. Late Friday afternoon, I got a weird alert. My online access to the company's internal HR portal briefly reactivated. Not full access, just a window, long enough for me to glimpse a modified file, the official termination notice. Dated Wednesday. 2 full days after Bryce gave me the boot in person. They were trying to backdate the event, maybe to buy time, maybe to shift the 72-hour reversion clause trigger. Who knows, amateurs? Here's the problem with rewriting history when the historian kept receipts. I had my timestamped check deposit, the notarized courier slip, the signed delivery confirmation, and my legal reply all dated Tuesday. I forwarded everything to my lawyer. She replied with a 2-word email, "Let them." By Friday night, word was spreading inside Halcyon. Nothing loud, just whispers. Someone from product pinged my old assistant asking if she had a copy of the founder's charter. Another from legal called in sick pending document clarification. One particularly brave IT analyst apparently told Zach the vibes were concerning after being asked to sign off on some half-baked platform migration. That night, I got an email from an anonymous Proton Mail account. Subject line, "He's bragging about replacing you with AI." Inside was a screen grab from a company-wide Slack where Bryce said, "Honestly, Jennifer's whole job could have been done by a decent plugin. We're future-proofing now." No one responded to the message. Just a string of eye emojis. I didn't reply to the Proton Mail. I just saved the image to a folder called Ignition Files. The folder also contained a copy of the reversion clause, an audio recording of Arthur discussing succession planning, and one glorious video of Bryce pronouncing fiduciary as fiduciary during an onboarding Zoom. By Sunday, I knew the countdown was entering its final phase. Bryce didn't. He was too busy planning a company-wide rebrand. The theme, new blood, no baggage, that tagline wouldn't age well, but it'd look real nice printed across his exit packet. The Monday board meeting was supposed to be routine. A quick touch point, a few Q3 slide decks, some half-baked performance metrics from the new Vibe Ops team. Bryce